Welcome to Wrestling World. This will be a reshoot of the other Wrestling World video we did. This is going to go from the beginning, from 1962 all the way up until 1990. I thought I had a complete. I am missing 3 issues in 1989, and I remembered when I looked why I didn't buy them. So this will get you from 1962 to 1990, all the way complete. I'll go through the dates. Pay attention with Wrestling World. It was a lot of months that they didn't put out an issue. And there's no order. Sometimes it'll go every other month. Sometimes it'll go every month. Sometimes it'll skip 4 months and then put out 2, skip another 2 months, put out 1. So if you're looking to collect these, it can drive you crazy if you don't know what issues that you're looking for. So hopefully this video will help you guys. Wrestling World issue number 1, September 1962. The first 4 were a little bit different than the other after that. What I mean by the quality of the paper was just a little bit different. If you have them, you'll know what I mean. Not a very good paper. It was, for some reason, it was like kind of thin compared to the other paper later on. The next issue, I was just talking to try to find the date. Oh, it's scratched off at the top. November of 1962 with Buddy Rogers on the cover. By the way, their first issue of Wrestling World would also be the very first blood issue from all the magazines from 1951, when the very first magazine was released for mass consumption. There hasn't been any blood on any of the covers up until here. This was the first one. Wrestling World was the first to break you a bloody cover. Next issue, January 1963. March 1964, kind of an odd looking cover there with a big foot to the face. May 1963. August of 1963. This has the coverage of the Buddy Rogers and Lou Thesz match for the title change. I believe this was the issue. October 1963. December 1963. Moving on to February now, 1964. Bruno Sammartino's first cover as champion. Notice the very first WWF belt he's wearing, which was the interim belt with the, I believe it was the Indian head on the cover, on the front plate rather. This was the only magazine that will feature him with this belt. It was inside of a Japanese magazine, and it was also in an article on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette when he was there with the boxing champion. Next issue, Wrestling World, April 1964. June 64, Dr. Jerry Graham. August 64. October. If you remember from the last video, December, they cover a lot of the Sheik, Wrestling World. Sheik sold a lot of magazines with his face on the cover. It was Wrestling World, the first break it, and he would be on, no issues for June and August. I wrote this down because I forget. It took me forever searching for June and August, because so far we're going every other month. There is no issues for June or August of 65. It goes right to October. So what I was saying about the Sheik, Wrestling World put a lot of the Sheik on their covers in the late 60s and early 70s, early part of the 70s. December 65. 66, February. These issues go for a lot of money. For some reason, they're in demand. These 60s Wrestling World are very expensive. The last 2, this one and the last one we just looked at, a lot, and now also this one, it could go for anywhere from 50 to 80 bucks. It's crazy. They're excellent magazines. Wrestling World was without a doubt my favorite non-Stanley Weston magazine, or Bill Apter for those who know what I'm talking about. Without a doubt, Wrestling World was a fantastic magazine. They treated it like a sport, with a lot of respect, and it wasn't like a tabloid like some of the 60s Western issues were. These were like sports magazines, and did a great job. They held up really good. Like I said, the first couple issues were just a little bit off with the paper, but they really made up for it in the later years. And the spines are thick. There's almost like a book binder on the side of it, not like a fold. It's almost like a flat side, a flat spine, and it really holds up great over time, especially when you stack them on top like I do. We are in June of '67. I know I'm talking, so just follow the issue, and it will have the picture of the of the cover that you're looking for. They're all, so far, they're every other month. So we are October '67. This was a ridiculously hard issue to find. My buddy John Arezzi gave me one. This is his personal one out of his personal collection. And when he mailed it to me, he just sent me a signed photo. Bill, your collection is amazing. Best wishes, John. John's a great guy. Everyone who knows John Arezzi is a photographer, legend of the wrestling business. So this was John's, and it was an honor to have him. This was my very last Wrestling World issue I needed to complete. Could not find it. Searched for years. Long story short, my buddy Bud Carson says, why don't you give John Arezzi a shot? I bet you he has it. I'm like, I'm sure he doesn't have it. Quick email over to John. Yeah, Bill, I got it. And here it is. So thanks, John, for completing my Wrestling Worlds. December 1967 and '68. And here is our first look at the Sheik on the cover. Great shot of the Sheik in February 1968. Great belt shot of Verne Gagne with the AWA belt in April of '68. There's another magazine coming up that looks just like that. It's slightly different, but it looks exactly the same. So I'll do a comparison for you when I get there. June of '68, Bruno on the cover. They did cut his belt off on the bottom. August of '68. October. Sorry about the glare. Another shot of the Sheik. Abdul Farouk, or the Grand Wizard, who was the Sheik's manager in the Detroit area before he came to New York. February '69. Bobo Brazil, Gorilla Monsoon on the cover of April of '69. And here is the other Wrestling World I was talking about. It is from the same photo shoot. It's just a different pose. You can see from a different angle here, just the comparison. It's just a little bit different. So it's not the same cover. One is a yellow background, one is white, one is turned to the side with his wrist is on his hip on the other photo. So it is a little bit different, but for any Verne fan, I'm sure they're happy to have AWA coverage on the cover for their magazine. August of '69 with another shot of the Sheik looking much like Sabu there. Bruno again sitting with the belt. October of '69. December '69. Sheik is back again in February 1970. The 70s now get a little weird. It goes from every other month. Then it goes to, like, some of them are 4 times a year. Some will be 2 times just for the year, 2 issues per the year. And then there'll be months. They'll be listed by the date, or I'm sorry, or the season rather. It'll be spring, summer, fall, winter. All of a sudden they'll put in a March or an April. So it gets kind of tricky from 1970 on. Okay, so issue number 1 for the 70s, February 1970. The next issue would be winter '70. So there's no actual month for the second issue of 1970. Okay, so winter 1970, spring 1970. This was also a very expensive issue for some reason. Whenever I see it on eBay, it's going for a lot of money. A lot of you guys asked me if I would make a video about prices and what people should be paying for them. And I mean, who am I to say what something's worth? And you know, far be it for me to put a price tag or a limit on somebody who wants something or wants to sell something at a high price. I mean, I feel like, you know, I really have no business even doing something like that because, you know, who the fuck am I? But then again, you don't want to get ripped off. basically it comes down to whatever people are, willing to pay for something. But I'm thinking about putting together some kind of a price guide video for you, for guys who are collecting stuff, because there are some that are just flat out gouging you, and it's just not right. I look at some of the prices. This isn't true, but I'm just saying this issue could be $165. And then someone will say, wow, that's the only one online. It's $165. All right, I need it, let me get it. And then a week later, here it is for $8. So there should be some kind of reference out there. So I'm thinking about putting like something like that together. It's going to be difficult to do because there's so many issues to go through, but it is something that I got in my thought process for you guys. All right, this is winter 1971. No, it's not worth any money. Maybe, 20, $30. Spring 71 with the Sheik. And like I said, some of these early Wrestling Worlds are a lot of money. Figure just on an average, figure roughly 50 an issue. I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? I didn't pay anything like that. I've had these for so long, and I really didn't look at these because I already had them. I needed a couple, and they weren't expensive, but by and large, I've had them for, 20, 30 years in my collection. Then I look on eBay and I'll see something that's like $80. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, $80. It just sounds crazy, but that's what the people seem to be getting for them. Now, if in 72, this is listed for 2 months. This is January, February. Okay, they don't do that all the time either, so that could also be confusing. I know 72 did it a few different times, so it could be listed either way depending on the seller, on wherever you're buying it, how they word it. Okay, so February issue, which is normal by going every other month or seasonal, but now for the first time they're listing January on their cover. January, February 1972. Next issue with Abdul Farouk, or the Grand Wizard, is March, April 72. So they're doing that double month again. This would be, like I said before in the previous video, this is the first and only time a manager had the entire cover of a wrestling magazine. Not before this, and I believe not after this either. Pretty interesting choice for a cover. So the next issue is now a solid month, June 72. Okay, so they're very inconsistent with the wording of their months, and it drives collectors crazy trying to find an issue that only becomes a phantom issue. Wow, it never existed. I'm looking for a May, and there's no May. August 1972, we're back on there with the Sheik. October 72, Killer Tim Brooks. WWF Tag Team Champions, managed by the Grand Wizard, on the cover of December 1972. Freddie Blassie would take these two tag team champions, Tanaka and Fuji, later on, and they are also on the cover. I believe it's Wrestling Review, though. February 1973 with Ernie Ladd, and our first look at Abdul the Butcher. Mil Mascaras on the cover of April 1973. He is against the Spoiler. This is in Madison Square Garden, and this is the first time that a masked wrestler was allowed to wrestle in New York City. The ban was lifted. McMahon was able to, Mr. McMahon Sr. was able to get the ban lifted for Mascaras, and he was able to compete for the first time with the mask. Sounds crazy, right? But it was illegal. Illegal for women to wrestle at the Garden up until 72. Illegal for masked wrestlers in 73. It was finally lifted. Wrestling World, again with Verne Gagne. AWA and Verne Gagne got the most coverage from Wrestling World also. You didn't find Verne on hardly any covers of the Weston issues. And Wrestling World really went to a lot of territories that the other magazine companies didn't. So that's another reason I love Wrestling World a lot. You got to be able to see different champions from different sections of the country. Fall now. So if you went from June was 73, now it's a jump to fall. All right, so you see how the month jumps. And now we are in winter 73. Will be the next issue. Even here the font changes. So the font now finally changes from the two lines with the underlined Wrestling World to Wrestling World directly across the front of the page. And this would stay this way, I believe, until the end. This would be the continuing look from here on out of the Wrestling World banner on the cover. And this is winter 73 with Valentine and Jack Briscoe. John Tolos on the cover of Spring 74. Mascaras on the cover, Summer 74. Andre the Giant, Fall 74. The Sheik with the older style Detroit version of the U.S. belt before he had it as the map of the United States. Another Sheik shot, Pampero Firpo in a cage in winter of 1974. Giant Baba, Dory Funk, Spring 75. Summer of 75. The Blackjacks, Fall 75. Superstar Graham, Winter 75. Now, there's another change. I believe this is where it goes to just a couple of issues a year. So they're no longer every other month. No longer are they seasonal. I believe it's just annual and special. I'm not sure. Just let me make sure this is right first before I say. So annual 76 for Wrestling World. Yeah, this is the only issue. One issue of annual 76. I thought there was two. There is two for some other years, but 76, just one single issue. Next issue wouldn't be till the annual of 77. Superstar Graham and Bruno on the cover. And that is the only issue for 77. So between 76 and 77, one issue each in that year. So 1978, special edition. And I believe there's one more issue after this one, Superstar and Dusty. It's called Wrestling World Special Edition 1978. Yes, and there's one more for 78, and it's the annual. So you're getting two issues for 78. I have no idea why, what happened, why they dropped off. The magazines now, from this point, are the staples on the side are not as strong as they used to be. The binding on the side is not the flat side binding like a book. It is now a folded over magazine type. That was made a lot cheaper. The magazine's still a great magazine. So that's the only good thing about it is, the content hasn't changed. The quality has not changed. Everything is still the same. It's just the cover has gotten a little bit weaker. And these didn't really stand up that great. As we got into the 80s, a lot of my 80s issues are not destroyed, but not great. They didn't hold up that great compared to all the others, which is kind of a shame. But I mean, all in all, I don't have any rips. I don't have any separated staples or anything like that. But they are a lot flimsier. Special issue 1979. It just says Wrestling World Special 1979 edition. So the next issue for 79 is an annual. It says 1979 annual Wrestling World. Backlund versus Bockwinkel for the AWA title versus the WWF title. That's it for 79. So two issues. So there you go. So 70s was a little bit crazy. They were kind of all over the place. There wasn't an issue consistent, and much of the early 80s is just like that. So hang with me until we get to like the mid section of the 80s where it starts going like almost every month again. Not quite. 1980, there is only two issues. We got Bruiser Brody for the NWA title against Harley Race in a 1980 special. Excuse me. 1980 annual. Dusty Rhodes is on the cover. So two issues, 1980. 1981 annual in the corner here. It goes over the greatest matches from 79, 80, and 81 with a full color full color section inside of the great matches from 79, 80, and 81. So make sure you get that pinup that's included with that if you find that issue and you're looking for it. A lot of issues had full color in the 70s and 80s, so I always make sure when I buy one, it's complete. I won't buy a magazine that isn't complete without the color pinups in them, so make sure if you're looking for that. Sometimes the sellers don't list it. Always ask and find out, especially if you're paying a lot for it. Special 1981 Wrestling World, Hogan and Putski on the cover. And that gets us out of 81 And I believe now we start to 82, we start going back to the seasonal titles. So Wrestling World Winter 1982 with the reappearance of superstar Billy Graham in the WWF. Spring 1982 with our first look at Jesse Ventura on the cover against Backlund. Wrestling World Summer 1982. Rick Martel has Adrian Adonis in a arm lock. Great match that I would have loved to have seen. Maybe I'm better off just keeping it as a fantasy in my head. Superfly versus the Nature Boy on the cover, fall of 82. Special 1982, so it's not a month or a season, it's just called Special 1982 Wrestling World Morocco against Backlund. Wrestling World June of 1983. So there's a big jump here. So we go from the end special, which usually came out somewhere around the holiday season, Christmas, New Year time, towards the end of 82. There's not another issue until June of 83. This is a very beat up issue. This is my signed issue. We'll look at that one. It's better. It's signed by Jimmy at the bottom and Bob on the top. June of 83. So it skipped quite a few months, half the year basically, until another issue was released. So there's no issues from January on. If you're trying to search them out, they don't exist. August of 83, Rick Martel. October 83 with Sergeant Slaughter, Ricky Steamboat. We got Tommy Rich on the cover with, I believe that's Larry Zbyszko. I'm not 100% certain. 84, Tony Atlas with Johnny Rodz. Kind of a strange cover. Johnny Rodz wasn't a winner at this point. He was basically enhancement talent. In 1984, he was a job guy, but nevertheless, on the cover, he would actually make it right after this in 87. Rodz would go on to the IWF, become the IWF champion. It was basically a Northeast promotion, independent, lasted a few years. It did all right. They had a ladies champion. I think it was Candy Devine was the champion there. Let's see, April 84, pretty decent looking cover. Tony Atlas and Greg Valentine. Another pretty good cover of Morocco on the cover. This one is also a difficult issue to find. I was looking to get an upgraded one. Haven't been able to find one. Not that this is anything wrong with this. It's just loose on the cover, and those kind of things drive me crazy. But hard one to find, this one. June 84. I haven't looked in a while either, so I should actually try to check it out. When I was looking, it was not around. We have July 84 with Hogan. This is in Japan. Antonio Inoki is on the bottom. Them two here are tag team partners in New Japan. Andre the Giant on the cover of August 84. Now September 84 with Ric Flair and Butch Reed. October, and if you notice, that was, what was that? August, it was July, it was June, July, August, September, and now October. Every one was one after the other. See how it's just, you know, crazy with their release patterns here. We are in October 84. Did we get a November? Yes. November 84, Steamboat and Flair. Will they complete the year? Yes. December 84. Well, so that's weird. So they go every other month. They go two issues a year. Now out of nowhere, they release one every month for the next 6 months in 84. But no rhyme or reason. Just don't know. So there wouldn't be another issue again until February of 85. He skipped January now. And it's got the Freebird on the cover. And it looks like now we're going every other month. And we got Jerry Lawler in a headlock with Road Warrior. I'm trying to get this so your glare is cut out a little bit. And this is April 85. Special issue, June 85, Tommy Rich. Where is the month? August 85, once again with Flair and Von Erich. Superstar in Puerto Rico with Carlos Colon. Special issue, October, Flair and Race. Magnum TA, the up-and-comer to the NWA Mid-Atlantic Territory, November 85 against Flair. Just trying to fix you guys straighter here. Sorry about that. Jim Brunzell on the cover with Nick Bockwinkel. And Road Warrior back on the cover with Dory Funk Jr. on the bottom. You couldn't imagine Dory Funk beating a guy like Animal in real life, right? April 86. Was I calling that 85? I'm sorry, guys. This is the first issue of 86. This is February 1986 with Animal and Funk. April 86, the Brutai on the cover with the Junkyard. Iron Sheik, Mike Rotundo. August 86, Magnum and Flair back together. Boris Zukov and Hawk, the big Russian on the cover of November 1986. Nikita Koloff was huge at 86, muscle-wise, I'm talking. December 86, back with Beefcake. And Rotundo, he now is with his new partner, Dan Spivey. Broke up with Wyndham at that point for a short time. 87, we are in February with Flair and Dusty. Iron Sheik and Leatherface, who would be Corporal Kirshner. Sorry guys, I know I'm all over the place. I'm just trying to keep the damn glare out of here. Corporal Kirshner, he was in the FMW as Leatherface. Horrible gimmick. I loved FMW early on, but having this guy with the chainsaw gimmick was a little bit ridiculous. Dusty Rhodes on the cover with Flair. Once again, that's a great shot of Flair and Dusty on the cover. Nikita on the cover with Flair. On the cover of June 87. August of 87 with Neidhart. Hogan and Macho on the cover of October 87. Wrestling World, what I liked most is they kept it with a two, sometimes three photo layout the entire time from 1963 until the 2000s almost. What I mean is they didn't cover it with a shitload of pictures with like 20 different guys' faces on it. They pretty much kept it two guys wrestling and or a small corner pick off to the side, which I loved about that. That's why I continued to buy Wrestling World through the 90s and the 2000s. Wherever they are, I can't find those all. I do have more because they started going to the hardcore style and they started going to a lot of independent places later on. So I started to buy a lot of those in the 99, 2000. I haven't dug them out. They might be in another box in another part of my attic. I will check it out. That if I do, I'll do another vid on those ones with some hardcore stuff and some ECW, FMW, if I make a video with all those mags. March of 88 with Sting. April 88 with Hogan. June 88, Animal taking on Arn Anderson. And the only thing I didn't like, I mean, it's not, I can't complain, is their banner came off to the side. They came off with this kind of a header here. That would happen on, a lot of them. You'll see it on this last issue. A lot of the issues started doing that. I would prefer just a solid background of the ring still and just a picture of the two guys without the font looking like that or the side banner. But considering the other magazines at this point, I'll take it. This was, 1,000 times better than our West End issues at that point. Wrestling World, November 88. Andre and Bam Bam Bigelow on the cover. December 88, final issue for 88. Now, I don't have all of 89, like I said. There was only, I think, 6 issues. I have 3 of them. This has got Flair and Luger on the cover of March of 89. April 89 with Macho. Hogan on the cover of September 89. And that is the last issue that I have for the complete run all the way in a direct line from 62 to 90. So there's 3 more. I believe Hogan's on, that's why I didn't buy them. And but I do have a couple that I still had close with the others, and I was just saying how it didn't make a collage of a whole bunch of different pictures, but later on they kind of did. But this is 1999, I believe, or June of 1999. It started going towards the hardcore wrestling. They started putting a lot of blood back on the cover. They started covering some independent places that were doing some hardcore, like ECW, FMW, CZW. So that, of course, that had my interest, and I would buy those issues. This is the first time we're looking at Abdullah the Butcher on the cover in about 20 years. So that, I mean, that, to me, I'm over that. That's great. They had glossy paper inside, full color inside, so the magazine really stepped it up. It continued on for a long time. This issue, I wasn't going to buy it, but it said the top 20 heavyweight champions of all time. I was like, well, shit, I gotta have, I gotta get this. So I'm going through and just like, who do you think would be like the top greatest champions of all time? So I'll just go from 5. So 5, they had Verne Gagne. Okay. 4 was Lou Thesz. All right. 3 was Ric Flair. Okay. 2, Bruno Sammartino. Who do you think number 1 would be? If you guessed Hulk Hogan, you gotta be a fucking idiot. So Hulk Hogan. I mean, come on. The greatest heavyweight champion of all time? Give me a break. You guys know my feelings on that. You know my feelings on Hulkamania in general. But to put him above Gagne, Thesz, Bruno, Flair, I mean, give me a break. Oh my God. Sadly, the people reading this in 2000 have no idea who Thesz or Gagne even were. So it's nothing to them. So, of course, whatever's going to sell the magazine, so put Hulk Hogan as number 1. And what year was that? December 2000. Yeah, so, I mean, Hogan was at the height. He brought all that stupid Hulkamania stuff back. He goes back to the WWF, and, the fans are screaming his name for hours on end in the fucking stadium. I mean, yeah, I guess he was pretty over, but whatever. He ain't the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. I'm sorry. So here it is, just another example. This is 2001. Got a great bloody cover. Now more extreme. So Wrestling World was covering a lot of indie matches, a lot of indie companies. They were putting blood back on the cover. And in 2001, who would have ever thought you'd see the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher on a cover of a magazine? Pretty great stuff. Of course, it's got the ECW and it's got XPW, which is great. People give it a lot of shit, and I stand behind ECW, a product of its time. I mean, you start treating us with, clowns and gimmicks, you're going to have the opposite effect, and you're going to have somebody who's going to rebel. And ECW did just that, and it got a lot of pissed off people involved in wrestling again. From that, because that came from FMW and Onita, the ECW I'm talking about, that's, spawned the idea for Out West with the XPW. Patrick Hernandez, a good friend of our channel here who watches and supports us. Thanks, brother. XPW is back. I've got every one of their pay-per-views, and wow, they are knocking it out of the park. Some awesome shows. I can't say enough. I'm still waiting for my Halloween in Hell video to come. It's on its way. I can't wait to watch that. They've been killing it. If you guys, I didn't think anyone would ever be able to top Supreme as the king of the deathmatch. But the guy Schleck they got now as the new champion, and he's doing an awesome job. I mean, and he's given Supreme a lot of praise. I mean, XPW, Rob Black has really hit it out of the park. I can't say enough about it. If you like that kind of wrestling. I'm not a fan of CZW. I was ECW. I love XPW right now. I love what they're doing. And if you like, a good solid wrestling match with hardcore and ultra violence all mixed into one show, and the ladies, check them out. They're doing a great job. Anyway, this was Wrestling World, and it was a long time coming because it took me a long time to find these. I've been slacking on the videos. I got to put some more out, and my place is still in shambles. I'm trying to put everything together. I'm trying to set up everything in the room here, and trying to make it, because I have so much stuff. I'm trying to find a way where I can put everything out. It's just a lack of room for so much stuff that I have. So it's taking a little time, but there will be a part 2 to a showing my full collection to you guys. So I'm almost done. So we'll see you guys on the next. Thanks for watching.